For today's Meet the Management interview, the Black Industrialist Scheme is an incentive out of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition aimed at developing industrial capacity in the country and supporting Black-owned businesses by offering grant funding to qualifying entrepreneurs. In this interview, we talk a little bit about the sponsor of Black Industrialist offering from Uzenzele with Nadia, and I am Tabitha. Thank you, Nadia, for joining us again. Before we start, can you give us a quick reminder of who Uzenzele is and your track record?
Thanks so much for that, Tabitha. Yes, so I'm Nadia. I'm one of the founders at Uzenzele, and we've assessed over 2,500 SMEs over the span of 15 years that we've been in business, having arranged almost 3 billion Rand for the SME market. And we work specifically with industrial and manufacturing businesses, typically where expansion requires meaningful capital and where funders need strong evidence. Our core work is really in funding readiness, in due diligence, in capital structuring and packaging at an investment grade. So helping you to get those applications into the development funding institutions like IDC, the NEF, CIFA, the AITF, and what will be the Transformation Fund, as well as the commercial banks and corporate ESG. What we're known for is judgment, sequencing, and saying not yet when capital is premature, and then building a credible path to bankability.
Today we are talking about the Black Industrialist Scheme. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is?
Absolutely. So the Black Industrialist Scheme is a DTIC incentive aimed at building industrial capacity, manufacturing capacity, that is, and supporting Black-owned manufacturers through grant funding linked to qualifying investment. So what it can contribute to is, it can contribute meaningfully to CapEx, but it's conditional. The project must be eligible, it must be credible, and it must be properly structured with strong evidence and compliance. People look at grants and incentives and say it's free money. Not really free money. It's a disciplined incentive for bankable industrial expansion, taking our hard-earned tax money and putting it to work to grow our country.
Does that mean that any entrepreneur with an idea can go to the DTIC and ask for 50 million Rand in funding for their business?
No. In practice, most projects fail because they're just not investment grade. The numbers don't hold, the CapEx case is weak, and governance is generally thin for a lot of the type of Black industrialist projects. Or the project just doesn't meet the scheme's eligibility and evidence requirements of the DTIC. So DTIC's incentives sit inside a much wider, broader funding stack, including debt, equity, and sponsor support. And the project needs to survive due diligence. Our job is to make sure only serious projects go forward. And for corporates, that discipline really matters because reputational and governance risk is real when ESG spend is tied to these big capital projects.
Okay, so this sounds a bit more complicated than simply writing up a business plan. Can you explain what you're trying to solve for the sponsor Black Industrialist offering and how it would work in practicality?
Yes, so where corporate South Africa spends 1 to 5% of net profit after tax on enterprise and supply development, much of it stays small and quite short term. So you don't really get this new productive capacity or resilient suppliers. Sponsor Black Industrialist connects the enterprise and supply development decision makers to vetted investment-ready industrial projects through a structured model of diagnostics and due diligence, then blending finance structures where the sponsor's capital can de-risk the overall funding stack, and then investment-grade packaging for DFIs and other funders. So we build this governance and reporting machine that allows sponsors to defend the spend and measure impact. It's not an incubator, it's not a workshop, and it's not a generic grant program. It's capital engineered with accountability. And so what we see then is that the corporate gains a de-risked route to strategic suppliers and localization outcomes, and the industrialist gains a real funding path and the operational support to execute post-funding.
Thank you. I think you've given us some very comprehensive answers.
Thank you so much for that, Tabitha. That was fun.
Lovely. Thank you so much.